Oh my goodness, there's so much happening in the NBA. This is Bring It In Troops little Zoom show. Okay, quick recap. There's David, there's Drod. The Nets won game one over the Bucks on Friday. Drod was there. James Harden has hamstring issues. We'll get to that. The Hawks won game one over the 76ers, but the 76ers did something interesting on defense that David wants to talk about. The Clippers eliminated the Mavericks tonight. Nuggets at Suns game one, Bucks at Nets game two. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, Hawks at 76ers game two. Clippers at Jazz game one. That should be good. Maybe Mike Conley will miss that game with hamstring trouble. David, do you want to quickly brag about your Thorpe rule?
27-0. Wait, I haven't tracked it this year based on the last 2 years combined, but my guess is it's about 96% accurate now, maybe 97%.
You win one quarter by 10 or more points, but don't give one up. You win.
Yeah, win by 10 or more, don't lose by 10 or more, and you're now 27-0 this postseason.
Yeah, how about that? Okay, we're gonna do a quick little thing. We're gonna go rapid fire through some games, starting with Hawks Sixers. Big question going into the game was Joel Embiid gonna play? Take it away, David.
Yeah, so we didn't know if Embiid was going to play. In fact, it seemed impossible that he would play with supposedly a torn meniscus. I actually spoke to a radiologist that deals with NBA players all the time, and he's like, it's impossible to guess how he'll be based on. I don't know. I haven't seen the MRI, so there's such a range, right, of the kind of tear. Well, it wasn't much of a tear because he was incredible. Right, Embiid was very, very good on defense, active on defense. I'll talk more later maybe about how the Hawks defended him, which was very wise by them, especially with the big lead. But he destroyed everyone like Godzilla against Tokyo. He did whatever he wanted to do. He ran over some buildings in the process and was marvelous. And they got their ass kicked except for the last few minutes, which I don't know when we want to talk about that. But Embiid answered the question. He was amazing.
The 76ers don't have a Lou Williams type bench scorer, which we've talked about, and it became so clearly a problem. They gave up these giant leads. I think there was a 14-4 run, a 17-0 run, mostly with benches on the floor. Danilo Gallinari, Lou Williams scored like crazy for Atlanta. Or at least not, scored well. While the lineup for the Sixers was Matisse Thybulle, George Hill, Wendell Maxey, Dwight Howard, Furkan Korkmaz, and they basically couldn't score at all. It seems like that was correct analysis.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in needing a bench. So I think we all can agree Luka Doncic is better than Trae Young. And there's always going to be the story of the trade where Atlanta drafted Trae first. Trae Young is in the second round and has a win. He has, 3 wins on the road against the Sixers, Knicks, 2 elite defensive teams, and a playoff series. Luka's never won a playoff series. It's fair to say that Luka's better. It's also fair to say the Hawks got more than Trae Young. They got multiple players, of which it's considerable upside with those other guys. And Trae Young is a Mozart. He is a very, very special player who can get lit up on defense more so than Luka. I would think there's not a single Hawks fan that would rather have Luka. The rest of the league may all want Luka first. Tell that to a Hawks fan, which is what I tweeted yesterday. They're loving life right now, and that dude is exciting. Yeah.
This thing struck me too late, but okay. Daryl Morey traded away Clint Capella, one of the most newsy trades of recent NBA history. He did it, reliable sources tell me, because they thought Clint Capella wasn't really like tough enough to guard Anthony Davis one-on-one. So they were like, we're going to be just as good as Robert Covington against the Lakers. So, or wherever Anthony Davis plays, which is probably their key obstacle. So like, let's just roll with Robert Covington's better offense. Well, now here's Daryl Morey with Joel Embiid as his giant weapon, single covered by Clint Capella. Much like I'm like, oh my goodness, I freaking guarantee you Clint Capella knows this. Clint Capella knows he was traded. He is a Hawk because Daryl Morey gave up on him in this exact kind of thing, guarding a splendid big like that. And just I'm like, oh, this makes it a little fun to watch this play out.
Well, he was single guarded in part because the Hawks did get a good lead. And it was very obvious to me, Atlanta thought, we're going to trade those contested tough twos in the paint for we can score anywhere we want to, 2 or 3 or free throws. And you can't trade baskets with us down 15 to 20 points. So they mostly stayed home. They showed double They didn't double a lot, again, especially once they built that lead. And they ended up outscoring Philadelphia by 30 points from three, and they barely won the game. But that's what happened, is they just weren't going to say, oh, no, you're not going to beat up Capella. They were like, good luck with that. Keep getting your tough twos. We're going to keep scoring at will against your so-called amazing defense. And if it wasn't for what ended up happening with the way they pressed, and we can talk about that, I guess, after, it would have been a blowout. It was a blowout. It should have been a blowout. Atlanta handled the press very poorly. But we'll see going forward if they do that again. My guess is they will, Henry. If the Hawks can get a good lead because they made some threes early, whatever, they're just going to let Joel do their thing, and you're not going to be able to come back making twos.
The commentary around basketball and the way players talk, and I think it's generally true, is just be aggressive. Be aggressive. Everything's be aggressive. Be aggressive. There occasionally it's really stupid, right? This is when Russell Westbrook misses 30 shots. He's being aggressive, right? That's what he's doing. And another, to me, a really good example was very late. The Sixers are screaming back into this game. They're doing exciting things that we're going to talk about in a second. And I forget who, a Hawk made an unbelievable, almost full court pass. Joel Embiid is the only guy back, and he does something that's fantastically stupid, right?
Yeah.
Number one,
mistake.
Yeah. First of all, he gives up a clear path foul, which is just doom, right? And he does it by diving with his injured knee face first onto the floor. So they almost lose the game, maybe did lose the game because of an obvious referee call they had to make. And two, he took a little risk that he wouldn't play again in the series. It turned out he could, but to me, be aggressive defines the way the best players are different from most players often, but not all the time. In that particular moment, Joel Embiid's move was to do nothing, right? Just give up the layup 100 times better, or be in a better position to start. But to me, be aggressive is not always the right answer.
Yeah, that was I think he was in panic mode. But that happens when you are panicking. I mean, this was a desperate situation. It happened on the other side. Atlanta made some mistakes, including Trae Young, that we would bench. I don't like benching high school players. They make mistakes like that, but I will raise my voice to them. He tried to throw, we call this a hook pass, where he's dribbling right, they double. And so when you hook it over your head to make the pass, but Trae Young is minuscule and Danny Green is long. And it easily got deflected and stolen. I would yell at my son when he was in 7th grade and the smallest guy on the court for throwing that pass against a taller guy. Now, as he grew, I said, Max, you now can do these kinds of things. You're not the little guy anymore. Trae Young is, and is used to being the little guy. That was the beginning of when they really unraveled. They had a number of turnovers late. They panicked. They just got desperate. And that's exactly why Embiid did what he did. It was just a desperate move. Yeah, give up the quick two.
I've been covering the NBA since the 90s, and every 6 months, somebody's like, why don't you guys full court press? And then everybody rolls their eyes hey, dumb new guy. We don't full court press because everyone in the NBA can really handle the ball, and they're not going to panic, and they're not going to throw the ball to your defender because this is the top level of the game. And sure enough, you call me after that game, I hadn't watched it yet, and you're like, oh my gosh, full court pressure, almost completely defined a victory in the playoffs. What? Why did it work this time? Was everybody wrong before? What's the deal?
Yeah. So as you know, I think teams should always have a lineup or two that can do this kind of thing and should employ it as a weapon. The Raptors are the only team that have kind of consistently found ways to press. And I think I'm going to write about it this week. I'm going to start doing some research this afternoon because I think they're the only ones that do it. In theory, the average person's right. You can't press in this level because almost everyone can handle the ball. Very few players act out of desperation. They'll do pass fakes. They'll use their eyes to move defenders. There's just lots of little rules. As a simple example, Henry, one of the first things I would do with young players is you teach them to be greedy receivers. So when a ball's coming to you, you don't wait for it, you go get it. Starting in 6th grade, go get the ball, go get the ball, go get the ball. Learn to pass fake. Don't ever throw leaning back, leaning forward so you can get more pace on your passes, right? You don't throw diagonal cross court too often. You have to read what's going on. There's lots of fundamental things. These guys all these NBA players have dealt with presses their entire lives as basketball players. I promise you. They've seen a million presses. And at that level, it should be nothing. But because no one does it, it's like I took 6 years of Spanish, but I didn't speak Spanish again for 20 years. And I went to Mexico for a few weeks for business. And it took me a while. And by the end of it, I could listen pretty well. I couldn't really talk, but I could follow the conversations. But I mean, I was lost that first week. Last night, the Hawks were lost. They broke they dribbled in the corner. They didn't work hard to get open. The Sixers were denying inbounds. They got a 5-second call late in the game. And Ben Simmons got the easiest layup of his life in crunch time because they trapped Bogdanovic. He was very weak stepping through the trap. And the ball got knocked away. Simmons got a layup. Another time, they're trying to foul Trae Young. I don't remember exactly what Trae Young's shooting from three, but it's around 90%, I believe. Trae, just keep dribbling around, they'll foul you. Instead, he threw like a panic pass. It got deflected by Tobias Harris and stolen. They lost their mind. Now, will they be better next game? Probably. But they didn't weren't better last night. And maybe they won't be so much better because I didn't get my Spanish back in a day. It took me a week to kind of get back on the flow. I think it might take a little time. They're going to talk about it today for sure. I know that.
I'd say one thing I saw was like, when you're down 7, 11, whatever, with a few minutes left, it's time for risks, right? And one of them was Ben Simmons was like, I dare you to call me for a foul. Like this giant, most mobile man in the NBA is just fouling everybody, like the whole just like wrecking crew. And it works. Like the fans are on their feet, everyone's screaming. And he's just like, call me on this, right? And I think that like, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, they do this, right? They play in this way where it's like, I dare you, ref, to like take this from all these people who want this so badly, right? And, he's a brilliant defender, but he also was just hell for leather on that.
That's the strategy. I mean, you're exactly right. The playing question you might be speaking of, Trae Young crosses left to right, falls over, flops. I watched it 10 times at 1/4 speed. It probably was a good no call because Trae ran over Ben's leg. However, had they called it, no one could have argued. Yeah. It was not an easy no call to make. I think you're right. And this is exactly what we teach our teams all the time. You just don't want your best players to do it all 4 quarters, which is why you should have a group of guys that play 10, 12 minutes. Get a bunch of Terrence Manns out there running all around. You'll get some steals. And you can target your press to when your opponent has certain guys on the court that may not be so ball strong or have the size to throw over, have the quickness to get around it. Like you can mix and match your press based on matchups in the postseason, just like you can in the regular season. So the Sixers had no choice last night. They were down 15 with 5 to play. So I didn't look at GameCast, but that's got to be 98% winner for the Hawks, right?
The other thing I like about the speed lineup idea, which I ever since you described it to me in detail a while ago, I think about it all the time. But like, this is a way to make, in the preseason, Harry Giles was really good, right?
Yeah.
And then basically never played. Like, what do you do with him? It's like, well, he anchors this
so fast.
Right? This is a way to get you can have these bench players who are basically useless to you can become part of, like, this is also how you keep your star from getting injured, is to get useful minutes out of deep bench players, right? And like, and if you can have, like, actually, it was amazing to me the Sixers did a bunch of effective pressing without Matisse Thybulle on the court. I'm like, he was born for this.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. He'd definitely be great. I will say on this topic of Hawks Sixers, I don't remember who wrote this. It might have been The Athletic. But can I read this one segment, Henry?
Yeah, where we got?
So we can look. You can click on the link, Judy, if you want to. But traps might seem like kryptonite on dynamic playmaking guards, but Young loves to see them. During the regular season, Young tormented trapping defenses. This sounds like Kevin Arnovitz, by the way, to the tune of 114.3 points per 100 chances in the half court, 118.5 on possessions where he or the recipient attempted a shot after just a pass right away. The Sixers sent multiple defenders at Young 15 times in the second half on Sunday, according to ESPN. Young attempted only 1 field goal in those 15 instances. The Hawks went 7-11 overall from the field for 19 points. That's really what I want to talk about. This is the decision that the Hawks have to make. If the Sixers want to run, not pressing, if they run 1-2 to DeAndre, to Trey, which is the same thing the Suns going to talk about with Jokic, by the way, is are we going to limit Trey Young and everyone else going to go crazy? And then if they do that, Atlanta's got to decide, are we going to go into a series going forward now where Trey Young takes 3 shots a game? Like that's not easy to do. I would recommend that they do it, because Trey Young may feel like, I still got to get mine. If you remember, Henry, our story of Golden State versus Cleveland matchup finals 1 in, I think, 2015, it took Steph Curry almost three games to realize, I don't have to be the guy.
Right.
They keep blitzing me. I'm going to make the easy, we call it the short roll pass. So the screener at the top, his man doubles. Steph Curry was David Lee. David Lee rolls to like the nail, 15 foot, the free throw line. Throw it to him, let him make an easy play. Draymond Green, let them make an easy play. Steph wanted to be the hero of the first 3 games. It was running around like crazy. That's why Iguodala got all those easy shots all series. They would blitz. He'd make the easy short roll pass to whomever. People would be wide open everywhere. But Trey Young ain't Steph Curry yet. Steph had been around a little longer. I will say Trey Young was good last night about it. He didn't feel like he had to be the man, but he already was the man for the first half. So now let's see if they do it the whole game. If Trey's willing to have like 8 points. If he is, and the Hawks are shooting well like they are, I think the Sixers have a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Okay, we have so much to talk about.
Yeah.
We should move on to Mavericks Clippers. That was game 7. Pretty exciting.
No, Henry, you don't want to talk about the concussion?
Oh, look at yeah, okay. So there's a like, how long ago now did the NBA enact a concussion protocol? 8-9 years ago. The deal is if you have a blow to the head, you go to the locker room, you get tested, and they compare your test to your baseline, when you're healthy. They do the same thing in high school sports, college sports, whatever.
Right.
But even in real time, I was like, but they just don't, right? People get hit in the head all the time and don't come out. And sometimes they stagger around like dizzy from hitting their head. We had this clip of Tim Duncan who it was just, he's flopping around. He could barely move his own limbs. And they just didn't pull him out. And Kevin Huerter had a play where he stopped in the break and he like aggressively grabbed Wendell Maxey and then he hurtled backwards and he hit the back of his head on either the guy's knee, the fan sitting in the front row, or his metal chair. And then the cameras caught him on the ground. And they were just like, let me help you up. And he was like, no, like I can't get up yet. Took a little while. And then he looked a little spacey, eventually gets up, doesn't even check out of the game. And like, you can see his teammates give him a little 5, like, hey, it happens to all of us, right? Like, and it's true. It does. It happens to all of them. And which means the whole, like, I interviewed the University of Michigan doctor who made the protocol and talking how safe it's going to be and everything. Like, it is all for show. Like, they don't do it. Like, they don't pull players out of games for head injuries. They just don't. Like, once in a while, if it's really bad, but if they can get away with it, like, I think the NBA is much more interested in looking like they're taking care of players than actually having Kevin Huerter leave a game for a minute, right?
Right.
Which is, that tells you something. I think that, well, we'll come back to that.
It's consistent with this shortened schedule, right?
Yeah.
The 72 games in 94 days, whatever it was.
And it's consistent with gaps in drug testing, right?
Right.
The idea of drug testing is to keep players from having to take health risks, right? And it's like, test a few times a week.
That's a good meme right there. Right there. That's a good one. Good job.
All right, Mavericks Clippers. You go, David. Talk about Kawhi Leonard. He was pretty good.
Yeah, this has been a couple of times now in the postseason where he's just been the best player in the world. Just extraordinary. He's an extraordinary talent. And he took the game over. There was a play though where late in the game, Terrence Mann airballs a corner 3. This is a major part of the game. And Kawhi just beats 5 Mavericks basically to the ball, lays it up, and then he turns to Terrence Mann and says, hey, nice pass. And of course he's being sarcastic, although I didn't want to watch it again to see Terrence Mann really is a great passer. Maybe he was passing it. He wasn't. That was an air ball. And but that's the kind of thing you would do if you're playing pickup to your teammate. It just shows he can be Superman, but he can also be Clark Kent. I really love that about him on that one play. Because if you're Terrence Mann, you're playing with Kawhi Leonard. And by the way, he didn't play game 1. Like, this is still a new thing, a big thing. And if Kawhi does that to you, it just shows he's one of the guys for that moment. He's not one of the guys. He's a cyborg. That's his best effort. The Android version of him saying a regular human being would say nice pass. So that's what he did. That's what the computer chip in his brain said. I love that. Yeah, Kawhi was extraordinary.
Well, and it makes this tense game 7 feel like a regular game, right? That's a bit
yeah.
Yeah.
Just blow it off, Terrence. Like, you've been great. Blow it off. It's okay.
I honor you, David. Anyway. The Clippers gave up Landry Shamet, and before anyone except for you knew who Terrence Mann was, and you were like, I think they did that because they think they have something special in Terrence Mann, and he'll play those minutes. And for half the season, didn't look that smart, but now it's like it's completely what happened. Like that was a baller call, David. Nice job. But Terrence Mann is exactly what they had in mind.
Yeah, he's just now getting, people are starting to realize what a good player this guy is. Yeah, good for the Clippers. And just to finish that, Luke Kennard was great yesterday. And I tweeted out that he and Terrence are better than Pat Beverly and Rajon Rondo, who didn't play at the end. And then someone else tweeted, they're better than those two guys and Reggie Jackson, which I necessarily don't agree with. Reggie's been good. He had a great year shooting the three. All right, so after the game was over, I didn't really see the press conference, but I read about, Henry, that Mark Cuban basically said Rick Carlisle's our guy. They've not won a playoff series in a decade. And Cuban's point was, who am I going to get? Like, in his mind, this guy's a great coach. I think he's also saying management's got to do better, but Cuban kind of runs that team. I've done deals with Cuban. I know he's making these decisions. At least he used to anyway. He likes Rick, and I mean, you know, Rick is well respected by players. I don't think it's Rick Carlisle. I think first of all, they played a team that should not have been a 4 seed. The Clippers played like a 4 seed into this season and in this tournament, and they almost beat them. But I like, unless you think you found someone definitely better, I think the Mavs will be better next year, and I think Rick is a very good coach. Yeah,
I think we should talk about this. So, as a Blazers fan, right? This is not what they did to Terry Stotts, right? Like, you know. So what? To me, if Mark leaves the door open that Rick might not be the guy, then Luka has to wonder,
right?
Should I try to get the guy? Should I try to find someone? But Mark's just saying, don't do it. Don't bother. I'm doing it. We're keeping this guy, right? Like, which is, you know, Rick's not perfect. I know Rick. Like, we worked at ESPN with Rick. Like, Rick's this is what David loves this story. So Al Harrington played for every single coach you could ever imagine. David inspired me to ask him, like, who's your favorite coach? And he said Rick Carlisle, because he has a blue card in his pocket. And if he pulls out a blue card and he reads off a play and you score a fucking bucket. Like, that's what Rick Carlisle does. Like, I would say Rick Carlisle also, they won the championship in the locker room. Like, he doesn't know how to celebrate. He's not fun. Like, he's the most wooden, robotic person you'll ever meet, right? And you know, he's kind of annoying. He's a little abrasive. He's not that funny. And I could see, I was like thinking about this going into game 7. I was like, I think the Mavs are probably the most particularly prepared team. I think that whiteboard is very persnickety, right? And I was like, and they're prepared. I was like thinking about it. What would, with Rick Carlisle as your coach? Oh, one other fact is the Mavs were aggressive and early with having a team sports psychologist. And I wanted to write a story about it. And they were like, maybe don't. Because like the real reason we have him is just so Jason Kidd won't kill Rick Carlisle. Right? So Rick Carlisle is probably a little on their nerves. And I could see that might not be like the free swinging game 7 vibe that you want. And I was like, how cool would it be if Rick just flipped over the whiteboard and said, like, just fucking play, right? They're prepared enough, right? And actually, that rolls a little bit into, I think, a huge question for every superstar nowadays in the NBA is, did your teammates hit threes? If they did, you're probably going to win the game, right? And Lucas didn't, right? They were 5 of 23, 1 of 9 from Hardaway Jr. I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's just how it goes. But you play that same way again, and you might get 15 more points, right? Wouldn't be hard to think it'd be 10 of 23 for those players that open. And that's where I think maybe Rick Carlisle's like, you know, it's not quite the same as like being a general, right? It's a little bit like he has blue card in the pocket. He's about the blue card in the pocket, right? Like,
I watched all their missed threes the first 3 quarters. 16 of them were open.
Yeah, see.
By how I define the shot, they were open shots, and he just missed them.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing with the Nets Bucks game one, which we'll talk about. And so I know Coach Carlisle, and I know I've had lots of players that have played for him. Never once has anyone ever said to me they felt nervous shooting.
Okay.
Like he definitely wants them to shoot threes, and
Yeah.
he is a tinkerer. He likes to tinker with guys' shots, but if they just say, "Coach, I'm good," he won't mess with them. Yeah, he's an interesting guy to me because he is wooden, and yet he's nice. He's a nice man, and I don't think I think I mean it took Kawhi Leonard to be Superman, and he was. I mean he's just better than anyone they have. He hasn't been the whole series. He was in that game, and listen, Ty Lue did a good job for sure. He played Luke Kennard when he hadn't really played him much until Game 6, and he stopped playing Zubac. He played small. They did good. They didn't play Pat Bev. They stopped playing Rondo, I think, second half. I'm not sure Rondo played any in the second half. It took everything the Clippers could do. This is a team that a lot of us thought could win a championship. No one thought that of the Mavericks.
Yeah.
And they took 2 games from They won 3 away games. Is that right in this series?
Yeah. Every game was won by the road
team. Yeah,
team.
until Game 7. Yeah. So I think Dallas just needs more good players.
Okay, agreed. Drod, you went to an NBA game in person, like a thing people did in the before times.
Yes, covered an NBA game for the first time, and that's why my voice is a little raspy, because even sitting in press row, I had to scream to the person next to me because it was so loud in that damn arena. And as you guys all pointed out, I am getting old and it's time to move to the suburb.
By the way, it's Monday. That was Friday. Like
Saturday. That was Saturday.
Oh, Saturday. Okay, sorry, Saturday.
Rod,
Yes.
just the days are coming where you'll be the silver fox, and just embrace it, my man. It's a dig for sure, but what choice do we have when we get old and gray?
It's fine. I'm going to roll with it. First thing I wanted to talk about was Blake Griffin. So he was 4 of 9 from 3 at 18 points, 14 rebounds. And I want to point out, I predicted this would happen. He was going to have one of those games when they signed him where he scored points and people were going to say, ooh, see, we told you this is unfair. And we know that's not sustainable. But my question is the timely shooting and his hustle plays and rebounding, is that enough to offset what he does on defense, which is nothing good? Right?
So I want to talk about the Nets on defense, but before I do, I very quickly on Blake Griffin. Let's give it up for a guy that is known as this amazing dunker, Lob City, all these glitzy, glamorous things. He's been on a lot of TV shows. He fucking plays really hard. He is a rugged effort guy, totally selfless. I was really happy with how he did. And I'll get to him more later too, because I think he's one of the keys to the series. So the Nets actually, Gerard, they tried on defense. I'm going to give him a golf clap. They acted as if their effort might impact the score of the game. Super, guys. Meanwhile, the Bucks missed 20 open threes. I forget how many threes they missed overall, 25, maybe 26, but
it's 30. Yep.
Yeah, but they missed 20 were open. And now 3 or 4 of them were KD contested. So to me, open has a lot to do with who's guarding you also. The KD contest, he contested more than that. 3 were I call open, but he was still contesting. And I do think I think your heartbeat might quicken just a bit when you know it's KD so long. But they definitely made better effort. By no means was it perfect. It was better. And Milwaukee got a bunch of great shots. Now, 3 of those 20 misses also were Giannis threes. So that's a win for the Nets. They want the only 3. They wanted to give up those three threes. So I think this is still a hell of a series. The fact that they did it without Jeff Green and Harden, super impressive. But if the Bucks won game 2, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
I agree with your point there about, I think that's the Nets strategy on Giannis. Give him the 3, but don't make it be a wide open step in 3. Contest it late, right? Because he's not a great shooter. Yeah. One thing I noticed too in the game, we know about the Nets players and their individual isolation brilliance. But when they add, and I'm working on something with Henry on this, when they work on and add off-ball action to their individual isolation brilliance, you're toast. on defense. Like, because there was a play late in the fourth that was just like, it encapsulated what makes this team so hard to guard. You run a 4-5 pick and roll with Durant and Griffin, which, say that out loud, right? 4-5 pick and roll. Who does that? They do. Right? You double. PJ Tucker's trailing. Griffin's wide open in the middle. Kyrie's in the corner. He cuts to the rim. Shit, I got to guard him. I got to leave Joe Harris open in the opposite corner. It's just like a similar version, not quite high speed, but similar to the Cuisinart, right? Where it's like, fuck, who am I leaving? What am I doing? And how disciplined you need to be on defense when you're guarding action like that.
Yeah, for sure. Kyrie was sublime. That's the word that I'm not even sure I know what sublime means, but I think I know what it stands for. That's all I could think about watching him. I
Just
watched
one below lime. It's like
I watched all of his. I mean, I watched the game live, but I watched all of his points today. He's such a incredibly marvelous offensive player. And going into the game, the idea was that Drew can just shut him down, and I don't think to zero, but make it really tough, and then it's just going to be Harden and Durant. No, that didn't work. Now, Drew can get better. There's things you can learn when you play against guy one-on-one, and you can adjust from there. But Kyrie cooked everybody. Now, it wasn't the most efficient game. I don't remember exact numbers, but it was efficient. It wasn't over the top efficient. But he can do whatever he wants. He can score at the rim. He's got all the mid-range stuff. Of course, he shot threes. It's a problem. So when Gerard, you were talking about the Nets off-ball movement, it all boils down to getting the first domino to drop. I'm quoting Pop here. You got to get the first domino drop, which in a sense is making two guys on the ball. So once you pass it, it's 4-on-3 everywhere else. And Kyrie is you have to set a second guy. And because if you don't, he can really get cooking. Harden and Durant, of course, have the same ability, which is why they have the best offense in the league this year, right? So, yeah, but Kyrie in game one, Drew's going to have to watch a lot of tape. He'll have to get better in game two for sure.
Yeah, I was watching Drew closely. For the thing I'm working on, and yeah, it just, when you're guarding this team, your discipline has to be so good. Like, you can't, even being in poor defensive posture for a split second, done. Like, because now you're literally in chase and scramble mode. And, it's a problem. So the Bucks struggle in non-Giannis minutes. At least they did in game one. And I think, Bud has been sort of consistently doing his thing where I play my guys 34, 36 minutes. We don't play 40, whatever. This is where I think they're going to see the Harden absence really affect them. We know he's out for game two. Because when you have Harden, the Nets always could have one of those three guys on the floor at all times. So it would force Bud to have to be like, I got to get Giannis back in quicker. But now, with only Durant and Kyrie, there may be opportunities where Bud may not have to do that. And I think that may make a difference in this series. Because again, when you have to worry about one of those dudes all the time, that changes what you do as a coach with your rotations and everything defensively. So that's an interesting thing to watch. And I'm going to be looking at that going forward.
Yeah,
making Gerard play. It's making a mockery of everything I've ever said about rest and injury prevention to make Gerard play in his current condition. Like we're hurting you. We're hurting you.
It's fine.
One last thing on this series. So the game within the game, if for anyone that's watching a little more particularly, is the choice. The Bucks like to drop Brook Lopez, who's I don't remember the last time he was officially measured. It was probably when he was 19, but I think he's 11'4". He's just this huge man. And he wants to stand in front of the rim and harass everybody, right? And but Blake Griffin can shoot threes. So I think he took 9, 4 of 9. I don't know that he can't keep doing that. He's a good shooter. And he's a confident guy, and he's got the green light. But it's in Brook's head a little bit, like, I got to protect the rim against these bevy of amazing guys. And Durant and Harden, of course, he didn't play yesterday, and Kyrie, and yet I got to account for Brook. So you can scramble around that, around Blake. The Jazz have the same issue coming up here with Gobert playing the Clippers. You can scramble around it, but it's not what the Bucks want to do. They want to just be able to drop. And it's a decision that the Bucks will have to make, because if they don't keep Lopez, well, then the only rim protector is Giannis, and there's foul risk there. Like, to your point earlier, they cannot afford to keep him out 1 millisecond longer than what he normally would be able to play. Foul trouble is a killer for them. So this is the battle now. If Blake goes 0 for 4 in the first quarter next game, because I think he made 3 threes maybe in the first quarter, certainly in the first half of the last game. That'll change things a little bit. Brook will have a little bit more confidence to be around and maybe Nashville will try someone else there. Claxton isn't the threat, right? So you can easily play Brook Moore against Claxton. But this is the chess part, one of the little parts of the chess match that you can kind of look in on.
You know who's like got a big banner that says like Blake Griffin can win you a championship is Kevin Love. He's like, this is not wasted money. Like, get that guy.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I like how Gerard put it though. This guy is not a great player anymore. It's 2 years removed from being amazing, but it's very fair. He's not that much of a game changer. It's just in this particular series with the matchups he is.
If he made 1-9 in this game, like, no, we wouldn't be talking about this at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So Clips Jazz, want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, we had some. Yeah. Now we've been reporting on the past, and now we're going to report from David's brain into the future.
Good luck with that. So the Clips can go small, and they did against Dallas, and Carlisle countered it with playing Boban, who probably should be all of our favorite player of all time. Mm-hmm. He's the most delightful man. I hope he has an incredible movie career. I really do. I mean, he's going to have to play tall men or tall beings, but just love watching that guy so much. And have you ever played pickleball, by the way? I have to talk about my brain.
Whoa.
Do you know pickleball at all?
Gerard's getting older. Maybe he's playing.
Oh, don't joke with me. My son said that's my Father's Day gift. But all my friends are playing now because of the pandemic. They all pickleball courts at their house or whatever. Boban at pickleball, it would be the greatest player of all time because he can still move. I don't know how he does it. He can still move. He's such a big guy. But anyway, back to real basketball. The Gobert is a better player than Boban, than Boban. So this is going to be Clips going small. We don't know if Zubac is going to play. Maybe he'll play a lot like he did in the regular season. It's a chess match. Here we go. We don't know what's going to happen. Utah, what Utah wants to do, because the last time they played, which was months ago against the Clippers, Ibaka was healthy. He's been out. We don't know if he'll come back or not. He is, of course, a three-point threat. Gobert still, just like Brook Lopez likes to do, drops into the coverage, in the paint at the rim. Ibaka can get threes. The Jazz scramble out and protect him, which means sometimes Gobert has to guard Marcus Morris and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And the Jazz during the regular season were okay with that. Doesn't mean they would be in the postseason. This is why game ones are so intriguing. Typically, you won't tip your hat to what you're going to do in the regular season against a team you think is likely. You'll do it against the East team more so than a West team. So I don't know what Utah is going to do, but we know the Clippers are likely to play small and try to run Rudy out. I don't think Utah will bench him. He's their best player. But it's interesting to see how they're going to do it because the Clippers are rolling right now. And if you make them run around more, they're already tired. So that's going to be something we're going to have to watch a lot,
I got to say, my favorite Jazz player is Mike Conley. I feel like he's in some sort of next level wizard part of the game. If you just watch the area of the court where he's playing D, like things just get really hard for the other team. And he's easy to identify because he wears the very wide headband. but I don't know if he's not going to play. That's I would tell you that I was confidently would pick the Jazz in this game, because the Clippers have had effort level issues and now they're coming off a tough series, short rest. But
I still favor
Conley,
the Jazz.
I feel like I have no idea if Conley's not going to play, then
right. I still favor the Jazz, but I don't think Conley, based on what I'm hearing, he's not going to play game one. Yeah. And I get it. I thought that as soon as they pulled him from a closeout game, now the Jazz had a 20-point lead, but when you pull him at halftime, there's a concern. So right away, I thought, same thing I thought for Harden. We'll talk about that, Gerard, a little bit too. I thought, Conley's out at least for a game or two. They've got to make sure the hamstring is just, it's such an aggravating issue. So I don't think Conley will play tomorrow night. Maybe I'm wrong, but I still think the Jazz are a better team because the Clippers just had to go 7 games and really spend a lot of energy. I do think it's a great series, though.
Nuggets Suns.
I mean, it'd be nice to know if Will Barton's going to come back. He's an important player, and I think he's going to come back. We don't know when he's going to come back. The Suns have wing defenders better than your Blazers do.
What?
And-
That's
and that's-
impossible.
and that's important. I tell you, one of the biggest things. So because Michael Porter Jr. is so good at shooting, contesting him with short. You know, I was going to say it, Gerard. Contesting him with short guys is death. You got to get some longer guys, and they have that with Cam Johnson and Bridges to at least bother him a little bit on three. I actually think one of the most important parts of the series is Jokic really struggled in the regular season, last 15 games from three, 29%, I think. It's 43 in this last series. And I don't care if you're guarding him. You're never guarding him. He's always open. He shoots the ball behind his head, so he's always open anyway. And he's 7 for 5, whatever. So I think that's really important because if he can knock down some threes and Ayton's got to really come out and guard in space because Ayton guards him very well inside, very well. But he is prone to foul him if you attack from the perimeter. So my guess is I would be telling Jokic, I want 6 first quarter threes from you. I don't care what happens. But I don't care how well you're guarded, shoot them. If you make 2 or 3, even better. And let's just see if we can get Ayton to come out and really guard you and now put him in your own personal Cuisinart because Jokic plays like the 50-year-old dude at the YMCA. He'll bang into you and he spins around and you can't help but foul him. And they need Ayton out of the game. Otherwise, I think the Suns have a good advantage, unless Chris Paul is more hurt than we know. I give the Suns an advantage there. Oh, the other thing is Dario Saric was a very good defensive player this year. He kind of dropped off as the season went on, but they were playing him less. Frank Kaminsky's got no shot. He'll bully. Jokic will bully ball Saric too, but I just think he's a much better defender. He'll deny him too, and you want to make Jokic work, although it seems like he never gets tired. But I think we'll see Saric more. I just like that Phoenix has that flexibility of playing another guy that can play good defense. So the Suns are a good defensive team. Portland isn't, and the Nuggets are going to be shell-shocked a little bit. Hey, this is what a good defensive looks like after what they just went through with Portland.
Ouch. That is it bad strategy trying to get Jokic in foul trouble? Like I was shocked that the Blazers never did you see Damian Lillard jump with his body into Jokic. Like what's the calculus there?
You know, I've not done research on how prone he is to fouling. My guess is it's not much. He's going to be the MVP.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So this isn't unique to challenge him. But no, I think in any of these games, it's good to attack. I mean, we hear this all the time with little guys. Make them work on the other end. Well, why would you make Jokic work? It's one of the things that he's so great about is you don't think he's a marathon runner. But you guys know his clutch numbers are great. In the postseason, he when he was fat, he blew me away. When he missed a shot in the fourth quarter, I couldn't believe it. It was so rare. He's still that same guy. He's really special. But any way you can get him sit on the bench, it's a good thing because there's no one else like him. I
mean, remember how the Suns attacked Anthony Davis? Part of me is like, oh, this could be interesting. Like, I mean, I don't know, again, the Chris Paul question, but like part of me is like if you get Jokic in foul trouble, you're gonna win. You're gonna win that game. Like that's just how that's gonna go. Oh, I don't disagree at all. I want to go back one thing real quickly to Milwaukee. I should have said it before. Gerard, in watching all those shots today and seeing 20 misses, which happens, I love that Milwaukee continued what they started doing in Miami game 2, which is just kind of letting it fly. The pace was fast. And I think you would argue that it benefits Brooklyn to play that way, right? I think everyone would argue that, but I would not argue that. I would say it benefits the Bucks too. If they don't want to play fast, I think Brooklyn's just fine with all of their offensive half-court talent. Milwaukee's dead. Yeah, they've got to fly up and down and let that motherfucker fly. This is, I think, the Harden out injury again because he allows them to play whatever pace works, right? He can grind it down. Let's go slow. He's used to that. Or if we want to pick it up when we need to in situations, right? So this is where you're going to see that his absence, and we know for game 2 for sure he's out. The other thing I wanted to mention about the Sun series, not only is Will Barton important, so is PJ Dozier. Because defensively, Devin Booker is going to roll into the series being like, Nikola Jokic, cool. I'm the best player in this series. Like he's gonna have that, so they'll need that defense on. That little shoulder thing he was doing? A little something. He'll have a little something. But is Dozier supposed to come back? They talked about not he wasn't supposed to come back in round 1, but they for the series. Okay, we'll see. Okay, all right, Henry. Let's get to the only thing you really wanted to talk about today. So we here at this house are Damian Lillard fans, like including there was an important moment where my daughter was basically announcing where she's going to go to college, and my wife didn't hear her because she was listening to Lillard's post-game talk about preparation and teamwork. So you know, this is not a hater talking. But I'm aware that when you owe $200 million to a 6 foot tall guy who doesn't play defense, like whose value is incredibly high and whose team is in turmoil, like you have to at least, if you're Neil Olshey or whoever's going to run the Blazers next year, you have to at least figure out, like, you know, his value is not going to go up in a year or the next, right? So, you know, what are the options if you're going to rebuild this team in some crazy way? You know, the conventional wisdom, of course, is to, what do you add around Lillard? But it might be that, you know, you have to think about trading high, right? And so, David, we talked about this a little bit, and you emailed me a trade. Judy, I think you have the link to this trade. Okay, how about this? Nasir Little, Damian Lillard, Robert Covington, the 76ers for Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey, Paul Reed, and Seth Curry.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think I don't remember if I put a trade. I mean, you can always look at picks, whatever. It shows up as failed if you're watching this because Paul Reed, who was on a two-way deal, I think, and I think they gave him a guaranteed deal. He can't be traded officially to June 24th, but then the deal would work. So my thought process was, if you're Philadelphia, you're going to ride in with, I don't know how much longer Embiid's knees are going to last. He is amazing now. Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid, and let's face it, Tobias Harris is a good player. And he's like 28, 29. Like, he's not even 30 yet. I think he's in year 16 league, and he's not quite 30. It's quite amazing. He's a very good player. So the idea is Lillard and Embiid as my two best players is enough. And I'll just praise my friend Daryl Morey and say, however he evaluates prospects, I think he's genius at it. I don't do it the way he does it. I'm sure he uses the analytics better than me. I'm good at what I do. I think he's amazing at it. And by the way, I loved Robert Covington many years ago. So did he. And I used to text him about that. So my point is, he will find the other guys to fill in the Lillard Embiid duo, right? And then just a boatload of talented players, including, starting with Ben Simmons. I like Maxey. They've got CJ McCollum, who will score a ton of points, play next to Ben Simmons. Tybulle's in there. Portland was a terrible defensive team. Not terrible. They were too often a bad defensive team. They wouldn't be with this thing on there. I think that it could work for both teams. I'm not suggesting it'll happen. But yeah, the idea is that you trade. He's now been three or four first-team All-NBA in the last 5 years, Henry?
No quizzes on the show, please, David.
I think Dame's got 3 first league out of 5. Is he going to do 3 more in the next 5? So you're trading when the value's high, and the luster is off a little bit. Another first-round exit. He's already endorsing Jason Kidd as the coach. He said something about this can't last. Like, I tell you what you can't do is make some moves that cost a bunch of money, and Dame's not happy in 6 months and pulls an AD. Yeah. So just some thought of, like, maybe I think they should trade CJ and build around Dame. Yeah. But I told Henry I would sit Dame down and say, hey, how committed are you? Because if you're not 100% in for at least the next 2 years, where you'll never want anything publicly, let's talk about a trade. Tell me where you want to go. I can't promise you that, but I'll do my best for sure. And let's never say a word to anyone. Same thing the Pelicans should have done to AD. How do we get you to LA? Don't say a word to anyone. And then you make the Lakers give you everyone. Because I think we know Daryl Morey. We know he wants the superstar, right? Henry, you probably have commissioned articles about this. He just wants the superstar, and I get it. So you can take advantage a little bit. And I'm not saying to take advantage of it because maybe Philly would win. Embiid and Lillard would be unbelievable together, wouldn't it? With a bunch of shooters, he can find the shooters and some defensive guys.
Oh, they're probably win a championship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I do think, you're like CJ next to Ben Simmons is interesting, right? They're going to be vastly improved on defense, and like we don't really know the outer limits of what CJ does if he has the ball all the time, right? Like he's got a lot of game. It'd be interesting to let him explore that.
Right. What do you think of that, Gerard? What do you think of that trade?
I like it a lot because it's, we talk about it all the time. It's separating CJ and Dame. Like that's not sustainable for a long-term success. Poor Henry. Every time he turns on the TV in the playoffs, he's like, oh, great.
It's fine.
Let's just, in reality, I just wanted to have my friend, I wanted Team Abbott happy to have Dame close. Isn't Philly one of the closest markets to you?
Yeah, we could go. It's right there. It's right
So,
That's right.
all right, let's get to what I wanted to most talk about today,
Yeah.
which was our friend Ethan's article.
Mm.
This is something, Henry, right up your alley, if you could introduce it.
So Ethan, like, just as I am in a multi-year jag fascinated by oligarchs and subterfuge, Ethan's off on some crazy bender. I'm sure his bosses are like, Ethan, what is happening with like TV ratings, basically, and the business of the NBA. And he's the gist of this story is basically like, none of the big name teams in the West made it to even the second round of the playoffs. And is that a business crisis for the league, and should it be? And is there not a way to make it so people are excited to watch the Suns? I think that sets up a little bit. And David, this has inspired, this has stirred something up in you.
Yeah, I like. I mean, I want the league to thrive, right? And I also like the idea. I thought Ethan has some great ideas on how to market the league better. We just he shows some commercials that were pretty good, but there's a little line here. He writes, sports don't just appeal to people's tribal urges or need to take the edge off of life. They also appeal to the same problem-solving impulse that keeps millions hooked on crossword puzzles every day. By the way, that's brilliant. And the NBA's current market dependence is a puzzle, one that's nagged it since the 80s at least. He goes on to write, football understands how to promote its past. I really want to pick up on that, Henry. Football understands how to promote its past, okay? He talks about the NFL films and its glorious trumpets and all that. I went to a football game once at Alabama, right? Storied Alabama. This was before their latest run, which is maybe the best of all time. So this was probably maybe early 2000, if I remember right. And before the game starts, they played the Gators, and I had a company. We flew 100 people into the game, whatever, on a private plane, whatever. So we're all in the stadium up high, and we're like number 2 in the country. Alabama wasn't ranked. And all of a sudden, I hear this slow roar, but not a loud roar. And then on the gigantic Jumbotron is amazing play after amazing play from 80 years of Alabama football and all their 5 or 6 national championships. And the crowd starts cheering more and more as the plays get to be more modern. So they finally get to the most modern one, which when they beat Miami in the Sugar Bowl, there's a famous play I bet Gerard remembers. George Teague stripped the guy, I think it was Lamar Thomas, he stripped him. Incredible play. Now the crowd's going nuts. And then you hear like an old, I'm pretty sure it's Bear Bryant's old voice. This is Alabama football. I sound like Gerard. And the team takes the field, and the Crimson Tide fans lose their fucking minds. Now, we beat them by 40 points, by the way. But I thought it was a genius way to introduce every game the young fans to what Alabama football stands for. It's not just having old announcers the way we have like Hubie Brown, who knows the game extremely well. He doesn't even reference old players anymore. I know most of our young players have no idea who players were from the 70s and 80s. They don't, except for the 5 superstars, Bird, Magic, those guys. I think Ethan's onto something. Let's celebrate all these great players in a more pronounced way. And I thought the puzzle thing was interesting too, when he talks about, this is what we do at Troop, right? We're trying to solve problems. People tend to like to solve these things, like he says, like crossword puzzles. Small markets have to do that. They can't just attract LeBron James and AD. They've got to put their own puzzle together and win games. So I thought Ethan wrote a brilliant article. And maybe we'll see an amazing series of Utah versus Brooklyn, which is a ragtag group of talented players versus 3 iconic players. That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think they'll go. Okay, so to me, there's this thing. Alabama football is beloved no matter who's on the team. 50% of the state watches. They've already solved the business problem, right? Like everybody already fucking worships at this church. So how you put the service together, it might matter, right? Because they're already in the pews. Basketball doesn't have that. Like basketball is only a good business when non-fans tune in giant numbers, right? And so that's where like it's very hard for people who do follow the sport to put themselves in a headspace, people who don't. but
Yeah.
all the solutions from inside don't fucking matter, right? This is people at a church that isn't popular devising ways to make a better service. It's like, put it on. It's still to us, right? Like, so this is where, like, you know, there's big marketing data, right? Like LeBron and Steph, Kobe, and you drop like 70% down, there's like the Lakers as a brand, right? Like all of this moving around the deck chair Titanic of like how we're gonna manage like the people who follow teams already. It's like that's 1% of what we need, right? The people who follow teams religiously, which is all of us, is not very many people in the NBA. So like how you promote to them, like that, it's just not gonna change anything. Like I think it's really like, how do you make it so that either we have to be a popularity-based sport, which is ad-supported, which is a national TV show that gets so many viewers that the ads can charge enough that it pays everybody's salaries, right? Which is what we're using now, but it's not popular enough. Or you have a different model, right? This is where I think the NBA's big news is MGM was like kind of a shitty, broken studio. It doesn't even have a lot anymore. It has 50% of the James Bond franchise without creative control, right? Like, and it has like, you know, they made The Handmaid's Tale and a lot of things that have lost a lot of money. 8+ billion, which is, you know, it's not enough to solve the NBA's problems, but it's an interesting number of how the streaming wars value things, right? Like the NBA is kind of MGM, you know, like they could maybe in the streaming wars. So now this is something where you're not getting half of America watching. You're getting, you know, 5% of America watching, but with gambling income and hardcore fans who will make sure they subscribe to Disney Plus or Amazon because you have the NBA, maybe it pays the bills, right? I think that's where the league is heading. I don't think we're ever gonna have young people watching enough commercials to play LeBron's salary, or right. So I think we're like, I don't think it's gonna be popular. Is basically where I'm headed with it. I think it's be revenue driver. Gerard, you want to talk back and talk?
No, I think I was going to ask you. I was like, the NBA is a TV show, and I think so. What you're essentially saying is, no matter what they do, it's not going to be a popular TV show, like in that format, right? There's not enough conflict and people that enough of not us, the non-us's care about to be like, I'm tuning into this. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So, hey, Henry, is it possible then? So, like in late night, all late night does is interview people and do skits to try to find a viral video for 30 seconds on their show. So they do an hour show, hoping for 1 or 2 really cool viral videos that everyone watches. Is that what NBA games ultimately are? Is you got to do the game, you have to have a competitive game, but we're just trying to find the great highlights to attract a bunch of eyeballs to YouTube or whatever.
Well, I mean, if you're like, that is an approach, but like when everybody's beat up because they played 4 games in a week, the highlights just aren't that good.
Right.
Like,
so this is my point.
This is, to me, is like this is, I think the reason we are where we are is because the NFL played once a week. And so the highlights are incredible, right? It's like this super slow-mo. People are jumping as high as humans jump and extending their fingertips, and they're willing to take the punishment because they have a week to recover. Right. And the NBA, like the smart move is to be Andre Miller and never jump. This year's MVP literally doesn't jump. Like this is not a game that's built to make highlights. Right. So, you know, yeah, I think it's their idea. Like they talk about the most important audience is cell phones in China. Right. So they just need like people doing amazing things. But they don't set it up for that. Right. Like LeBron's the biggest, strongest, fastest guy, but most of the year he's been sitting down. You know, like we just don't have that game, not from the owners, right? We have it from the point of view of, you know, I think the players are working out and everything, but I don't think they're like,
maybe this will be what finally changes things.
Probably a decade of a profound emotional suffering on the part of billionaires, and then they will change things.
That'll make you so sad.
Breaking all the best players in the world hasn't done anything to change.
They don't care about that.
Yeah. That seems. I remember, you know, I think I told the story before, but I was at a dinner once where a guy close to NBA billionaire was like, "What do I care if Derrick Rose injures himself? We'll get another one." Right? That's exactly how the league is modeled now. It's like, let's get another Derrick Rose. Okay.
I know we're almost done, but I told a player the other day, we were talking about these things, and I said, you have to get greedy. You get your first contract, you get paid really good money. He's a free agent. Shame on you if you stop. You'll be 29 or 28 when you're done. Those billionaires have a lot more.
Yeah.
Go get it. Get it. They got to pay somebody and make it be you. They've got plenty of money.
All right, John. I hope you're not going to talk for the next few days.
I'm good.
Honey and tea and lemon.
Yeah, David lives in this state. Doc Rivers lives in this state. You're Doc Rivers right now. That's the deal. Yeah.
Exactly.
Coach's burden.
Right.
All right. Lots going on. We'll see you on, I guess we'll probably see you Wednesday. We'll call an audible on that, but
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
all right.
Be
Thanks,
safe.
everybody. Talk to you